The whispers began at the edge of the triangulum sector. First, a missing transmission, then a delay, then nothing. On the 100 worlds of the IDAX Concord, speculation turned to rumor, and rumor turned to fear. Earth had not responded. Not to the final summons, not to the ambassadorial recall, not to the threat of corrective action. A silence that deep could only mean defiance. In the obsidian chamber of the Concord High Assembly, High Marshal Veltrask stood tall before the gathered council, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade through air. We gave them every opportunity. 170 years of indulgence, of patience, of peace, and now they spit on our order. Let no one mistake this. Earth believes it can stand alone. It is time we remind them what unity means. His voice echoed. With the multitonal cadence of his species, the low warble of threat rising beneath each carefully chosen word. Members of the assembly nodded, their crests flaring, their robes rustling like wind through dreary grass. Consensus was forming fast, eager, and dangerous. But one voice remained soft, steady, uncertain. Ambassador Siracor stepped forward, her luminous eyes reflecting the blue-tinged light of Serene's oceanic homeworld, embedded in her memory like tide on stone. High Marshal, she said quietly, I ask only caution. Earth has not fought in generations, but it has also not begged. That silence, I don't think it's weakness. I think it's warning. A pause, brief but tense. Trask regarded her like a hunter puzzled by hesitation. They are alone, Ambassador, primitive, surrounded by 100 systems of superior firepower and proven will. They are a relic, not a threat. They are not what they were, she replied, though her voice barely carried. Exactly, he snapped, and soon they will be less than that. The order was passed before the sun had turned over the Concord. Capital, a full fleet of 200 ships, comprising over 30 dreadnoughts, assault cruisers, carrier lances, and gravity cutters. All to be dispatched toward Earth, not for diplomacy, for compliance. Sira was assigned as political overseer and observer to document humanity's final moment of resistance. The fleet launched within the week. Across the void, on Earth's moon, Commander Elias Rain stood, alone beneath the shielded dome of Luna Outpost Delta. He stared at the transmission that pulsed silently on his console. IDAX declaration, full compliance demanded, fleet en route. Estimated arrival, 6 hours. He closed his eyes. Then, without ceremony, he reached beneath the desk and unlocked the biometric case. Inside, a black panel shimmered with silver veins. He placed his palm upon it. A single word pulsed across the surface. Ashfall. He activated the protocol with a single breath. Beneath the crust of Earth, miles below the deepest facility, ancient systems stirred. Ones not touched in centuries. Ones that should never have. Somewhere in New Sudan, a child knelt beside the dry riverbed and traced spirals in the dust with her finger. She looked up. The stars were dimming. When the IDAX fleet reached the edge of the system, contact was swift and clear. A final transmission from the lead vessel, fleet entering Sol range. Preparing orbital stabilization, then static. Then nothing. 42 minutes. There is a kind of silence in space that doesn't merely surround, it consumes. Not the silence of empty vacuum, but of expectation collapsed. Of voices that should be there and are not. In the command sanctum of the IDAX Concord Citadel, the air shimmered with tension as fleet data streamed in, then halted. One feed after another, gone, static flooded the consoles. Sensor arrays blinked in useless loops. Tactical overlays flickered, then FLATLINED. No distress beacons. No fallback. Signals. No signs of conflict. Just nothing. High Marshal Valtresk stood motionless, his four limbs clasped behind his armored back, staring into the projection sphere where 200 IDAX ships should have been. Instead, only a dark, pulsing void hovered over soul and absence. Too clean to be accidental. Beside him, Chancellor Drelm clicked his beak in sharp alarm. We must assume interference, sabotage. Perhaps the humans have allies unknown to us. Or perhaps, said Trask, his voice low and strained, we just learned something we were never meant to know. The room quieted. No one liked the shape of those words. Across the system, in an orbital med vessel adrift near Neptune's shadow, a beacon flared. Rescue teams scrambled aboard the IDAX escape pod that had appeared without warning. Its surface was scarred, covered in fractal burns, as if reality had blistered around it. Inside, one figure. Ambassador Sarah Kor, barely alive. Her eyes fluttered open as they moved her from the pod. Her voice was dry, faint, but unmistakable. We heard it. The song. We shouldn't have heard it. What song? Asked the medic, stabilizing her vitals. Sarah gripped his wrist with surprising strength. The stars sang. They sang. And then they were gone. And then she collapsed. Back on Earth, in a war bunker that hadn't been unsealed in over a century, Commander Elias Rain stood in front of the protocol Ashfall core node. Its pulse was steady, cold, and deep. He had expected resistance from the Security Council when he activated it. He got none. They had all seen the blackout. All heard the last transmission. All felt the pressure in their bones the moment before. A storm hits, but the wind does not blow. Dr. Amara Voss stood with him now. Her long coat was dusted with frost from the cryostorage archive she had just exited. In her hand, a data crystal labeled Singularity Prime. You knew, she sighed, not accusing. Just tired. I suspected, Elias replied. But suspicion doesn't stop invasions. Contingencies do. What's on this crystal? She said carefully. Should never have been built. Elias nodded. That's why we buried it. But now? We may need to remember what we used to be. She inserted the crystal into the terminal. Holograms burst. To life star maps rewritten, equations bending light, models of IDAX ships folding like paper under unseen force. Ashfall didn't just intercept them, she murmured. It nullified them, rewrote their event state. They weren't destroyed. They were erased from potential. Elias turned slowly. And if that's true, then what happens when the galaxy comes looking for answers? They both knew the answer. Earth would not be allowed to exist untouched again. In the distant dark between systems, in a place where IDAX tracking arrays could not reach, the core of one of their missing dreadnoughts drifted. Its engines dead, its hull preserved. Inside, no bodies. No damage, just rows and rows of empty suits. Armor with no one inside. And scrawled across the central observation glass, etched in heat scars that shouldn't have existed, one human. Word Arimim later that same Earth night, far beneath the Andes. A vault door opened for the first time in 212 years. Inside, humming with power and dust, stood the last Sentinel-class interface frame. Black metal, laced with neural interface lines and precursor glyphs. Elias placed his hand against it. Reactivate? The machine did not speak. It answered with a heartbeat. Far above, the moons of Jupiter turned silently in their orbits. But deep on the surface of Europa, buried beneath glacial ice, a signal pulsed, awakening an array that hadn't activated since before humanity learned to write. A forgotten eye. Now open. The IDAX Concord, in its pride, believed Earth was sleeping. What they failed to understand was that Earth was not asleep. There are records obscure, classified, buried so deep even the IDAX Concord's central archive refrains from acknowledging their existence, that speak of a time before the Concorde, before the Unification Wars, before order. In those records, a single phrase repeats in a dozen dead languages. Ashfall is not a weapon. It is a verdict. The Concorde never believed in ghosts. Until now. Within the crystalline war core of the Concorde's central nexus, chaos reigned behind. Polished walls. Reports, partial sensor logs, and psychic trace echoes filtered in from fringe stations. Nothing coherent. Just shadows. Images of IDAX dreadnoughts folding into impossible geometries. A voice human and not whispering across quantum bandwidth. Correction is not destruction. High Marshal. Veltrask stood before the Concorde's inner circle again, his face drawn with fury and confusion. 200 ships. Not one returns. Not one body. Not one blast of plasma. How does a planet with 7 registered defense satellites and no official fleet annihilate an armada? Correction, muttered Chancellor Drone, pulling up one of the recovered fragments. They didn't annihilate it. They removed it. Semantics, Trask barked. No, came a new voice, measured, old and slow. First strategist. Cortalin, blind and shrouded in an obsidian mantle, his mind linked directly to the IDAX long memory network. Not semantics. Something older than your fleet moved in that system. Something buried. Something awakened. Trask's voice lowered. Then we awakened something older. At his command, Protocol Devourer was authorized an emergency mobilization of the Concorde's full southern fleet, 410 vessels, 6 exterminator nodes, and a gravitational raising platform capable of turning Earth's moon into gravel. They would strike again, harder. This time, they would not attempt to subdue. They would obliterate, but Earth wasn't waiting. Deep in the mantle beneath Antarctica, something stirred. Elias Rain stood in the control chamber of Vault Echo, a space not accessed since the days of the first collapse. Beside him, Dr. Amara. Voss stood frozen before the central holographic pillar, her breath catching in her throat. Displayed before them was the original activation. Log of Ashfall 1 dated Earth year 2143, and the signature beside it? Her own. But I wasn't born yet, she whispered. The pillar responded to her voice. Time is not a sequence. Ashfall's lattice processes across multi-dimensional simultaneity. You created it. You will create it. You are part of it. Elias stared at her. What does that mean? It means, Amara said slowly, we didn't just build Ashfall. We were part of the failsafe. Earth is a convergence point. Humanity wasn't meant to fight. We were meant to anchor. He blinked. Anchor what? Before she could answer, the vault lights flickered, then dimmed. A soft, thrumming vibration began to resonate beneath their feet. The pillar spoke again, this time in a voice Elias knew all too well his own. From a time he didn't remember, Protocol Ashfall was never designed to protect Earth. It was designed to protect everything else from Earth. Miles above, aboard the drifting IDAX dreadnought Vorok's hammer, Sirakor awoke again. But this time, she wasn't alone. In the shattered hulls of the vessel, a low tone echoed a harmony that shouldn't exist in vacuum. She stood slowly, barefoot, drawn forward by sound alone. The crew was still missing. Their armor remained, slumped in formation. Their weapons still holstered, no signs of struggle. But etched into every surface, glowing with pale light, were spirals. Endless interlocking spirals, identical to the ones she had seen on the child's drawing in New Sudan. The music grew. Louder. Beneath it, a whisper. Not words, but memory. The IDAX fleet hadn't been killed. It had been shown. And it could not bear what it saw. Sarah pressed her hand against the command console. A vision pierced her mind. The IDAX ships arriving in formation, weapons primed. A shimmer around Earth's atmosphere. Not shields, not weapons. A choice, one by one. The IDAX vessels had passed through an invisible veil. And inside that veil, time twisted, causality folded, choice collapsed. Each crew relived 1 billion deaths in a second. Not theirs. Humanity's. A gallery of extinction events, war crimes, loss, suffering. And then they vanished. Not destroyed. Absorbed. Sarah collapsed to her knees. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "We attacked a graveyard and woke the ghosts." Elsewhere, on Titan's black ice plateau, a signal tower long dead lit with spectral blue light. It sent one signal looping on a forbidden precursor frequency. Ashfall has awakened. Earth is resuming its function. Spiral key CONFI Meadback Invault Echo. Amara turned to Elias, her face pale. "It's not over," she said. "It hasn't even begun." Elias stepped toward the console, the spiral glyph glowing beneath his fingertips. "Then let's make sure this time," he said. "We're ready." And deep within the crust of the planet, Ashfall pulsed. Not a weapon. Not a defense. The IDAX Concorde was built on fear, but not of gods, monsters, or death. It feared unpredictability. From the moment of its founding. Every world annexed, every rebellion crushed, every rival absorbed, was done under the cold law of certainty. The math was always precise. The odds always weighted. Power when controlled became prophecy. Until Earth. Now. The numbers had stopped making sense. High Marshal Veltrask stood before the deep calculus array in the Concorde central core. A massive sphere of quantum light and prediction spiraled slowly above his head, projecting every possible scenario that could arise from Earth's silence. Every single simulation ended in failure. All of them. Trask stared at the results. "This is impossible." The AI governing the array responded, its voice smooth and unfeeling. "Correct. Earth defies known statistical behavior. It is a logic void. Its parameters are undefined. Initiate simulation override," he snapped. "Impose forced constraints. Constraints fail. Earth cannot be contained. Earth cannot be corrected. Earth has already chosen." Trask slammed his fists onto the console. "Chosen what?" "To be the center." Half a system away, in the deepened gravity well of Jupiter's lower orbit, Sarah floated within the ruined remains of Vorok's hammer, connected to what remained of its neural core. Her body trembled from the psychic residue of the Ashfall field, but her mind, enhanced and irreversibly altered, was seeing patterns she never imagined. She had once trained for negotiation, diplomacy, reading body language, sensing intent. Now she could feel space-time breathe. From the shattered bridge, she watched as the gas giant below twisted slightly, not visually, but perceptually, as if the storm's great eye had blinked, and something beneath it had looked back. "Sarah to IDAX Relay Command," she whispered, unsure if the comms even still worked. "If you're receiving this, Earth didn't destroy us. It invited us inside. We were weighed, measured, rejected, but not killed." She turned her eyes toward distant Earth, now only a glimmer in the void. "I think it's trying to teach us or warn us." Meanwhile, under the Andes Mountains, in the Chamber of Convergence, Elias Rain stood surrounded by 20 high-ranking Earth official scientists, generals, historians, and one synthetic emissary built to communicate with precursor systems. All watched as Dr. Amara Voss activated the Ashfall lattice. "You were right," she told Elias. "This isn't a weapon. It's a signal processor." "What does it process?" asked Director Sloan of the Global Defense Directorate. Amara turned slowly. Belief. They stared at her. She continued, Ashfall doesn't attack enemies. It reshapes possibility. It reads the minds of the approaching threat and adjusts their potential path to its logical conclusion. It doesn't destroy, it forces the future they believe in to happen. Sloane frowned. Then why did those ships vanish? Because deep down, Elias said quietly, the Idax believed we were dangerous, that Earth could end them. Amara nodded. Ashfall made that belief real. They weren't destroyed by force. They were destroyed by certainty. A silence followed. And then the synthetic emissary spoke. Its voice echoed like wind in an iron tunnel. Earth is no longer inert. The precursor, Network, is listening again. The spiral has reopened. What spiral? Asked Sloane. The synthetic's eyes flared. The one that starts here, the one that ends where gods were born. Suddenly, the lattice shifted. All lights dimmed. A new signal, unfamiliar, vast, cold, began to broadcast into the chamber. Amara leaned in. It's not from Earth. Then from where? Elias asked. She swallowed. From the edge, far past known space, something's answering us. The synthetic turned its head slowly toward Elias. You activated the spiral. You began the echo. The galaxy is waking up. In response, thousands of dormant precursor ruins on moons, in oceans, beneath city foundations began to resonate with harmonic tones no species could interpret. Entire populations across the spiral arm stopped what they were doing, inexplicably overcome with the same emotion. Awe. Some wept. Some knelt. Some screamed. In orbit above Earth, in hidden space, the Idax Oblivion Lance, a ship designed to fire a star-breaking singularity warhead, reached position. It charged silently, ready to burn Earth to ash, but before it could fire, the stars around it disappeared, not blacked out. Removed, the Oblivion Lance's sensors picked up only one object, a figure, human-shaped, gigantic, radiant with quantum flame. Its outline flickered with symbols that matched no known language, yet felt familiar like dreams half remembered. The ship screamed as one and vanished. No weapons fired. No battle fought. Just absence. Back on Earth, Elias stood before the new spiral map. Amara looked at him, her face pale with wonder and fear. We thought we were defending a planet, she said. We weren't, Elias whispered. We were anchoring a memory. The chamber pulsed. A single precursor phrase translated across every frequency in the galaxy. For centuries, the Idax Concord believed control was enough. Control of fleets, control of laws, control of narrative. They wrote the history. They curated the future. Worlds bent beneath them, not because they were strong, but because they made themselves the only option. But now a new kind of silence spread, one no doctrine could explain. Earth had spoken, and the galaxy had heard. On the mining world of Calthera, 500,000 subjugated workers laid down their tools, without coordination, without warning. Across the ocean cities of Tyrith Prime, civil administrators found their command networks jammed by old frequencies playing only a single repeating tone, the heartbeat of a planet not their own. On Vorex Station, the largest warport outside, Idax Prime, 5 Idax dreadnoughts scheduled to join the retaliatory force never launched. Their crews simply refused. Some muttered about dreams. Some claimed to hear whispers in static. All said the same phrase in different tongues. Earth is not dead. Earth is remembering. Within the Idax inner spire, High Marshal Val Trask stood surrounded by intelligence shards, each one projecting reports from across the spiral. His angular features, always carved from pride, now sagged beneath the weight of something worse than defeat, uncertainty. "We should have burned them a century ago," he growled. "They were already burning," said strategist Core Talon, "and yet they waited." Trask turned, eyes narrow. "Then explain this." He waved a hand through the largest shard, revealing a visual reconstruction retrieved from Oblivion Lance, the ship that vanished near Earth without a trace. The figure appeared again, humanoid, radiant, taller than any living being could be. Its surface shimmered not with armor, but with memory fractals of war, grief, creation, and ruin. It did not move. It only watched. "Some say it is a projection," whispered Talon. "Others say it is Earth's god. But there is another theory." He turned toward Trask. "They say it is one of us. One of the Concord who tried to attack Earth and was rewritten." Trask recoiled. "You mean a conversion?" "No," said Talon. "A reflection." Meanwhile, back on Earth, in the vault city beneath what was once Colorado Springs, Elias Rain stared at the spiral interface. It had grown literally. What had once been a crystalline control column now rose 20 feet high, pulsing with languages that weren't on any human database. Dr. Amara Voss worked tirelessly beside him, her neural rig now semi-permanently fused to the lattice. Sweat glistened across her brow, but her eyes gleamed with raw revelation. "It's growing because the memory field is widening," she said. "Ashfall is pulling in everything, every ship that's attacked Earth, every psychic impression, every contradiction. And what happens when it finishes?" Elias asked. "It won't. It doesn't have an end. It has a purpose." "What is that purpose exactly?" She looked up, to bring the spiral back into harmony. He frowned. "What does that even mean?" She pressed a key. A new map emerged. Not of Earth, not of the solar system, of the spiral archive. A galactic network of precursor relay gates, silent since the collapse of their civilization over 300,000 years ago. Every node flickered online, all at once, all in sync. "What did we just do?" Elias whispered. "We didn't do anything," Amara answered. "Earth did. We were the password." From the far side of the galaxy, from within a collapsed black star where IDAC science claimed nothing could survive, a single signal burst through space-time. Echo alignment complete. Primary conduit, Terran sphere. Initiating phase, reclamation. And somewhere, beyond the edge of known space, something enormous began to move. An object too vast to be natural, too old to be designed. It unfolded from a gravitational scar like a flower blooming backwards in time. A voice followed it, mechanical and organic, young and ancient. "Earth has resumed its function. The spiral must be rebalanced. Prepare for judgment." Back on Idax Prime, alarms howled across the capital. Civilian broadcasts were hijacked by unknown frequencies. The sky above turned black, though no celestial body obstructed it. Instead, a spiral of pale light burned across the upper atmosphere, a mirror of the same pattern found etched into Ashfall's core and on the surface of Varrock's hammer. Trask stared at the broadcast with numb horror. "This isn't rebellion," he said aloud. "This is erasure." Syrah Core, now orbiting Titan in a human retrieval ship, slowly adjusted the controls of her neural uplink. Her body still trembled, but her mind was clear. She had seen the spiral's inner shape. She had heard its voice, and now she spoke for it. To all species of the Concord, she transmitted, her voice carried across every known frequency, "You were not meant to rule. You were meant to remember. You were not meant to conquer. You were meant to learn." A pause. "Earth did not rise to destroy you, but to remind you, the stars do not belong to empires. They belong to meaning." She cut the transmission on Proxima. "Be In the iron Red Sea, waves fell still. All across the galaxy, precursor ruins lit like lanterns in a long-forgotten fog. Ashfall had awoken the echo. The echo had The stars did not twinkle, they trembled. Across the outer reaches, seers, sensors, and synthetic sentinels alike reported anomalies, cosmic threads unraveling. Star charts began to drift. Predictive AI began failing. Worlds that should not be visible appeared in the sky. Moons realigned. And at the heart of it all, one singular constant remained: Earth. No longer ignored. No longer mocked. No longer forgotten. Now feared. And far worse. Watched. In the deep command sphere of the IDAX Concord, panic had displaced pride. Diplomats yelled. Scientists denied. Strategists demanded faster-than-light simulations that now took infinite time to solve. In the center, High Marshal Veltrask stood in the silence of collapse. Around him, the leadership of 17 core worlds fell apart beneath the weight of a question. None had dared speak aloud. What if Earth didn't just survive? The precursors. What if Earth was the last piece they left behind? Phase, reclamation. That message still looped across all known networks, delivered in every known tongue, even those lost to time. Translated instantly, impossibly. Worlds that had once traded only with IDAX were now receiving encrypted ping-structured patterns and fractal spirals, embedded with data maps far too advanced for anyone to decode. Trask was no fool. He had fought in 11 wars, had silenced 3 rebellions, had exterminated species that didn't comply. But he had never, in all his long and brutal career, faced a battle he could not understand. And now he faced one he could not even perceive. On Earth, beneath the collapsed remnants of old Denver, Elias Reign stood within the newly awakened core spiral, a space that no longer obeyed terrestrial physics. It was alive now. Not metaphorically. The air shimmered with memory. The floor pulsed like the heartbeat of a planet dreaming in reverse. Dr. Amara Voss hovered in the neural shell beside him. Her consciousness partially interfaced with the echo archive. Her voice echoed with thousands of blended tones, human, synthetic, and something older. I know what Ashfall really is, she said. Elias turned. Then say it. She looked at him, eyes glassy with streaming light. It's not a defense system. It's not even a warning. What is it? She stepped forward. It's an interface. To what? To the truth. The walls shifted. Reality bled in reverse. They stood suddenly at a memory echo Earth 20,000 years ago. But it wasn't Earth as they knew it. It was brighter, taller. The architecture was crystalline. The gravity was smoother. And above it all floated machines made of thought. They called this place the first node, Amara whispered. Earth wasn't seeded by the precursors. It was a precursor node. The last one, hidden in regression, buried in entropy. And we, the human species, weren't born here. We were installed. Elias felt his breath leave his chest. You're saying we're a bridging species, she said. A design consciousness. Organic enough to evolve. Structured enough to connect. We weren't left behind. We were the fuse. In orbit, the IDAX fleet regrouped. 35 vessels formed into diamond formation. Final orders were given. The decision was clear. Earth must be neutralized before the spiral spread further. Even if it meant breaking the laws of time. They fired. But the weapons never arrived. Instead, the sky cracked. And from within that fracture came light, not white, not blue, not any color known to the visible spectrum. Existence reassembled. Each crewman of the IDAX fleet saw a different truth, custom tailored to their greatest fear. One saw their homeworld swallowed by silence. One saw their children aging backwards. One saw a star whisper its name into their soul. All ships ceased movement. One turned its guns on itself and vanished. One drifted away. Forever. One transmitted a message back to Idax Prime. The stars are not loyal to you. They never were. And Earth responded. Not with missiles. Not with threats. With a beacon. It pulsed once. And every precursor ruin in the galaxy lit up synchronized for the first time in 300,000 years. Syrah Kor stood in the command dome of the human ship Sol's Promise. Orbiting Titan, she watched as the map of power redrew itself in real time. Idax's central hubs dimmed. Independent systems brightened. All networks now centered on Earth. She closed her eyes. So this is what it means to awaken. The voice that responded came not from her crew. It came from the Ashfall relay itself. You are not weapons. You are not rulers. You are witnesses. And you are late. In the deep spiral, beyond charted space, something vast turned. A construct. A machine. A being. It had many names and many lost tongues, but all meanings pointed to one truth. The galaxy did not end. It held its breath. From the rim worlds of the Carthan, reached to the floating temples of Veil worlds once certain in their conquest, comfortable in their submission, everything changed. Armies stood still. Trade halted. Entire governments collapsed not through violence, but through understanding. They had seen Earth's silence, and then they saw what followed it. The spiral sang. Earth harmonized. And above all else, something listened. In the far distance, beyond the veil of light and dark, the architects stirred. They had not built the galaxy. They had not seeded life. They had built something else, a system of remembrance, of balance, of correction. Their legacy was not creation, but calibration. They had left Earth as the anchor. And humanity, once scattered, once dismissed, once insignificant, had survived long enough to awaken it. Now the spiral prepared for alignment. On Earth, the mountains sang. Beneath the oceans, ruins once inert began to glow. Above the clouds, satellites once thought dead hummed with spiral harmonics. And beneath what had once been North America, in a chamber now made of shifting light and recursive time, Elias Rain stood before the interface for the last time. He was no longer just a commander, no longer just a man. His thoughts moved across the lattice like symphonies. His breath echoed in the language of stars. Dr. Amara Voss stood beside him, her consciousness fused in part with the Ashfall network. Her smile was faint, tired, reverent. It's time, she said. Elias nodded. We finish what they began. All around them, the spiral lit. One node, then 20, then thousands. Planets long silent sent back acknowledgement beacons. Civilizations once lost responded not with confusion, but with memory. As if somewhere, in the bones of their cultures, they had always known. Ashfall opened its final directive. You have reactivated the archive. You have survived the collapse. You have resisted distortion. Now you must decide, will you be stewards or repeaters of empire? Elias looked up. And for the first time in his life, he saw the pattern. Metaphor. Not in philosophy, but in space. The galaxy, it turned out, had been designed to teach itself. And Earth was the question at the center of the answer. Above Earth, the Idax Concord fleet, what remained of it, hovered, no longer armed, no longer organized. The war was over, not with a battle, but with a collapse of illusion. Veltrask stood on his fractured command bridge, staring at the new galactic map now burned into every star's signature. Earth had not risen in rebellion. It had recalibrated the cosmos. He wept. And across the galaxy, billions did the same. Syrah Kor stood on the edge of Titan's great cliff ice, transmitting one final message to all known channels. To the children of the spiral, you are not alone. You were never alone. You have feared Earth. You have attacked Earth. And now Earth offers you peace. She turned toward the camera, her eyes no longer Saranyan alone, but touched by Ashfall's light. We are not gods. We are not monsters. We are the mirror. Choose wisely what you bring before us, because we will reflect it. On Proxima B, the iron red sea shimmered silver. The child who once drew spirals in the dust now stared into the sky, her eyes glowing faintly. She smiled Dot in the spiral core. Something massive aligned. The architect spoke not in words, but in understanding Dot, and then they left. Their purpose had been fulfilled. Earth had remembered. Humanity had endured. The echo had become the voice. Peace did not fall upon the galaxy like rain. It grew. 1,000 fractured species began to speak to one another. The Idax Concord dissolved. Its capital turned into a place of learning. Ashfall was not replicated. It could not be, but its message was. A single phrase, etched into the deepest foundation of the archive, translated in every tongue. You were not made to conquer. You were made to continue. Elias Rain never returned to the surface. His body merged with the lattice. His name faded, but every time a species faced sin and chose mercy instead, every time a child looked at the stars and dreamed of harmony instead of conquest, every time someone remembered